Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about the last time you were angry. Maybe it was a coworker who didn't pull their weight. Maybe it was a stranger cutting you off in traffic, or maybe, just maybe, it was someone close to you who said something that just got under your skin. We've all been there, but here's the question. Why do we get angry? See, anger isn't about them, it's about us. Anger comes from expectations. We expect people to behave a certain way. We expect them to understand us, to respect us, to do things the way we would. And when they don't, we feel frustrated, offended, or even betrayed. But here's the problem. Expectations are one-sided contracts that the other person never agreed to. So how do we stop getting angry or bothered? We shift our perspective. We often think anger is something others cause within us. Someone cuts us off in traffic, a colleague takes credit for our work, or a friend lets us down, and we feel that surge of frustration, that immediate emotional response that tells us something isn't right. But if we take a step back and really examine where that anger comes from, we realize something powerful. Anger isn't about them, it's about us. More specifically, it's about the expectations we set, expectations that other people never agreed to. Think about it. When we get angry, it's usually because someone didn't act the way we thought they should. We expect people to be considerate, to communicate clearly, to respect our time, to be honest, to think before they speak. And when they don't, we feel betrayed, hurt, or frustrated. But here's the thing. Those expectations exist only in our minds. We've set a standard for how we believe the world should operate, but the world doesn't follow our script. Consider a common situation. Someone doesn't text you back. You start to feel annoyed. Maybe you think they're ignoring me, or they don't care. But the truth is, you created an expectation that they should respond within a certain time frame. Did they ever explicitly agree to that? Probably not. Maybe they were busy, distracted, or dealing with their own struggles, but instead of considering those possibilities, we often default to frustration, assuming the worst. Now apply this to the workplace. You work hard on a project, expecting recognition or appreciation, but when your boss or colleagues don't acknowledge your effort, you feel undervalued. Why? Because in your mind, effort should equal appreciation. But did they ever promise that? Or was that just an expectation you created? This isn't to say that expectations are bad. They help us set goals, define values, and build relationships. But the key is recognizing that expectations are ours, not universal truths. When we place them on others without communication, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The solution isn't to lower expectations, it's to change our relationship with them. Instead of assuming people should act a certain way, we can focus on what we can control, our reactions, our mindset, and our ability to adapt. If someone doesn't meet an expectation, we can ask ourselves, did they ever agree to this? If not, maybe it's time to let it go. This shift in perspective doesn't mean we become passive or stop expecting respect, kindness, or integrity. It simply means we recognize that anger often arises from our own assumptions, not from reality itself. When we take ownership of that, we free ourselves from unnecessary frustration and open the door to more understanding, patience, and peace. At the end of the day, people will act how they choose, not how we expect. The sooner we accept that, the less power we give anger over our lives. Most of us go through life assuming that people's actions are intentional, that when someone is rude, dismissive, or careless, they're doing it on purpose. But what if that's not the case? What if instead of assuming the worst, we assumed positive intent? This simple shift in perspective can completely change the way we experience the world, reducing frustration, anger, and unnecessary stress. Think about the last time someone did something that upset you. Maybe a coworker didn't respond to an important email, a friend canceled plans at the last minute, or a stranger snapped at you in line at a store. It's easy to jump to conclusions. They don't respect me. They don't care. They're just being difficult. But what if none of that was true? What if they were just having a bad day, dealing with personal struggles, or simply unaware of how their actions affected you? When we assume positive intent, we give people the benefit of the doubt. We recognize that most people aren't out to make our lives difficult. They're just navigating their own challenges. That coworker who didn't reply might be overwhelmed with deadlines. That friend who canceled plans might be struggling with something they haven't shared. That stranger who snapped might have just received bad news. By shifting our perspective, we replace frustration with curiosity and anger with empathy. This approach is especially powerful in relationships, both personal and professional. How many conflicts arise simply because we misinterpret someone's actions? A simple delay in response can be seen as neglect, a direct tone as rudeness, or a forgotten task as carelessness. But if we pause and assume positive intent, we open the door to understanding instead of resentment. Instead of reacting emotionally, we ask, what else could be going on here? This one question can turn a potential argument into a moment of connection. Leaders and great communicators understand this well. In the workplace, the ability to assume positive intent can transform team dynamics. If an employee misses a deadline, a reactive leader might assume laziness or lack of commitment, but a great leader asks, what challenges are they facing? How can I support them? This mindset fosters trust, collaboration, and a culture where people feel valued rather than judged. This isn't about being naive or ignoring reality. Of course, there will be times when people are intentionally difficult or unkind, but the truth is, those instances are far less common than we think. Most of the time, when people act in ways that frustrate us, it's not about us at all. It's about them. They're acting from their own stress, fears, and pressures. When we remember this, we take things less personally. Adopting this mindset doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or letting people take advantage of us. It simply means that instead of jumping to negative conclusions, we start with the assumption that people mean well, even if their actions don't always reflect it. And when we do this, something incredible happens. We feel lighter. We stop wasting energy on anger and resentment. We become more patient, more understanding, and more at peace. The next time someone's actions frustrate you, take a breath and assume positive intent. Ask yourself, what if this isn't about me? What if they're doing the best they can with what they know? That small shift in perspective can change everything. One of the biggest sources of stress and frustration in life is trying to control things we have no power over. We get upset when people don't act the way we expect, when situations don't go our way, or when plans fall apart. But here's the truth. We cannot control other people, their decisions, or the unexpected twists that life throws at us. What we can control is how we respond. And the key to reducing anger and frustration is learning to detach from the outcome. Detachment doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we stop putting in effort or lose all expectations. It means we stop tying our happiness to a specific result that we cannot fully control. Too often we think, if this happens, I'll be happy. If they do this, I'll feel respected. If things go as planned, I'll feel at peace. But by linking our emotions to external outcomes, we set ourselves up for disappointment, because reality rarely unfolds exactly as we want it to. Imagine you're giving a big presentation at work. You've prepared for weeks, practiced every slide, and know your material inside out. But during the meeting, the technology fails, the audience seems distracted, and the response isn't as enthusiastic as you hoped. If your happiness depends on everything going perfectly, you'll feel frustrated and discouraged. But if you detach from the outcome and focus on what you can control, your preparation, delivery, and mindset, you'll walk away knowing you did your best, regardless of the circumstances. Now think about relationships. Many conflicts arise because we expect people to behave a certain way. We expect our friends to always check in, our partners to always understand us, and our colleagues to always meet deadlines. But people are unpredictable, and they won't always act according to our expectations. When we tie our emotional state to their actions, we set ourselves up for constant frustration. Instead, if we detach from needing others to behave a certain way in order for us to be at peace, we gain emotional freedom. We start accepting people for who they are rather than who we want them to be. This mindset shift is also crucial in personal growth, and many people set ambitious goals, whether in their careers, health, or personal development, and attach their happiness to achieving them. They think, once I get that promotion, then I'll be satisfied. Once I lose that weight, then I'll feel confident. But when we base our fulfillment on a future outcome, we delay our happiness. Detachment allows us to find joy in the process rather than just the result. Instead of focusing solely on the goal, we focus on the journey, on showing up, on learning, on growing. Detaching from outcomes doesn't mean we stop striving for success, building relationships, or working toward our goals. It means we release the need for things to happen exactly as we imagine in order to feel at peace. It means recognizing that while we can control our actions, effort, and mindset, we cannot control every external factor. And when we accept that, life becomes a lot less stressful. The next time you find yourself feeling frustrated because something didn't go the way you wanted, ask yourself, was I trying to control something that wasn't mine to control? If the answer is yes, take a step back, focus on what you can influence, and let go of the rest. When we detach from the outcome, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress and open the door to a more peaceful and resilient way of living. One of the biggest reasons we get frustrated, angry, or hurt by others is because we judge their actions too quickly. When someone speaks harshly to us, we assume they're being rude. When a friend cancels plans, we assume they don't care. When a coworker doesn't acknowledge our contribution, we assume they're selfish. But what if none of that was true? What if, instead of rushing to judgment, we chose to understand? The reality is, people's actions are rarely about us. They're about them, their thoughts, emotions, struggles, and experiences. But when we make snap judgments, we take things personally. We create a story in our minds about what someone's behavior must mean without actually knowing the full picture. And more often than not, our assumptions are wrong. Imagine you're driving and another car suddenly cuts you off. Your first reaction might be anger. That driver is reckless. They don't respect anyone. But what if that person is rushing to the hospital because a loved one is in trouble? What if they simply made a mistake and didn't see you? The truth is, you don't know. And by choosing to assume the worst, you're only harming yourself with unnecessary frustration. This same pattern plays out in our personal and professional lives. Maybe a friend doesn't text back as quickly as you'd like, and you assume they're ignoring you. Maybe your boss gives you short feedback, and you assume they're unhappy with your work. But what if your friend is just overwhelmed with responsibilities? What if your boss is dealing with stress from their own life? When we shift from judgment to understanding, we make space for empathy. We start seeing people as complex human beings instead of characters in a story where we are the main focus. This doesn't mean we excuse bad behavior, but it does mean we pause before reacting. Instead of thinking, how could they do this to me? We ask, what might be going on in their world? This shift is especially important in relationships. A single misinterpretation can lead to unnecessary conflict. If a loved one seems distant, instead of assuming they don't care, we can ask, are they going through something? If a colleague is short with us, instead of assuming they're being rude, we can consider maybe they're under pressure. Just this small shift in perspective can prevent so much unnecessary frustration. Great leaders, effective communicators, and emotionally intelligent people understand this well. They don't take things personally. They recognize that everyone is fighting battles they cannot see. Instead of reacting impulsively, they ask questions, seek clarity, and approach situations with curiosity instead of judgment. This approach doesn't just reduce anger, it strengthens our relationships. When people feel understood instead of judged, they feel safer around us. They trust us more. Conversations become more open, conflicts become easier to resolve, and interactions become less stressful. Of course, there will be times when people do act selfishly, rudely, or unfairly, but even in those cases, judgment won't serve us. Understanding why someone behaves a certain way doesn't mean we have to accept it, but it does mean we can respond from a place of wisdom rather than emotion. The next time someone's actions upset you, take a breath. Instead of jumping to conclusions, consider other possibilities. Ask yourself, what else could be true? You may be surprised at how much lighter and more peaceful life becomes when you replace judgment with understanding. Every day, we face situations where we feel frustrated, disrespected, or misunderstood. A rude comment, an unfair decision, a moment of rejection. These things trigger an instinctive emotional response. And in that moment, we have a choice: react or respond. Reacting is immediate, it's emotional. It's what happens when we let our feelings take control without thinking. Someone insults us and we snap back. Someone disappoints us and we shut down. Someone makes a mistake and we lash out. Reactions are driven by impulse, and more often than not, they make things worse. Responding, on the other hand, is intentional. It's thoughtful. It's the ability to pause, assess the situation, and choose the best course of action. Responding means recognizing that just because we feel something doesn't mean we have to act on it. It's the difference between being controlled by emotions and controlling our emotions. Think about a time when you reacted out of anger. Maybe you sent a heated text, raised your voice in frustration, or said something you later regretted. In the moment, it felt justified. But after some time passed, did it actually help? Did it bring you closer to a solution, or did it just escalate the situation? Now, imagine if you had taken a deep breath and chosen to respond instead. Maybe you would have asked a question instead of making an accusation. Maybe you would have walked away and gathered your thoughts before speaking. Maybe you would have realized that the issue wasn't as big as it seemed in the heat of the moment. One of the most powerful things we can do is develop the ability to pause before reacting. That tiny moment of awareness, the space between stimulus and response, is where our true power lies. When we pause, we give ourselves the opportunity to choose. Do we let emotions dictate our actions, or do we take control? This skill is especially important in leadership. Great leaders don't react impulsively to challenges, criticism, or setbacks. They don't let frustration dictate their decisions. Instead, they stay calm, process the situation, and choose their words and actions wisely. That's what makes them effective. They don't let emotions run the show. They use emotions as information and respond accordingly. This also applies to personal relationships. When we react emotionally in an argument, it often leads to more conflict. But when we take a step back and respond with understanding, it creates space for resolution. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," we can say, "I feel unheard when this happens." Instead of blaming, we can seek to understand. That one shift changes everything. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about managing them. Emotions are natural, but they don't have to control us. The more we practice pausing and choosing how we respond, the more control we gain over our lives. The next time you feel anger rising, remember, you have a choice. Take a breath, step back, ask yourself, what's the best way to handle this? The ability to respond rather than react is one of the greatest strengths you can develop. And when you master it, you'll find that life becomes much more peaceful, relationships become stronger, and challenges become easier to navigate. Anger is a natural emotion. It flares up when we feel wronged, disrespected, or frustrated. In the moment, it feels justified, like a protective shield against the world. But what we often fail to realize is that anger doesn't hurt the person who upset us nearly as much as it hurts us. Holding on to anger is like carrying a burning coal, expecting the other person to feel the heat. The longer we hold it, the more damage it does. Not to them, but to ourselves. Think about the last time you were truly angry. Maybe someone betrayed your trust, cut you off in traffic, or said something hurtful. Your heart raced, your muscles tensed, your mind kept replaying the event over and over. But did your anger change what happened? Did it solve anything, or did it just make you feel worse? Anger is exhausting. It consumes mental energy, clouds judgment, and often leads us to say or do things we later regret. While it's a normal emotional response, when left unchecked, it becomes a burden, one that weighs us down far more than the original incident that caused it. Now imagine if you could let go of that burden. Imagine if, instead of allowing anger to take over, you acknowledged it, processed it, and then released it, not for the sake of the person who upset you, but for your own peace of mind. Because the truth is, carrying anger doesn't punish the other person, it punishes you. This doesn't mean we should ignore or suppress anger. Emotions serve a purpose. Anger tells us when something feels unfair, when our boundaries are crossed, or when we need to take action. The key is what we do with that anger. Do we let it fester and control us? Or do we process it in a way that leads to resolution? One of the most powerful ways to release anger is through perspective. Ask yourself, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Many of the things we get upset about lose significance over time. That rude comment from a stranger, that argument over something small, it won't matter in the grand scheme of things. So why waste energy on it? Another way to manage anger is through understanding. Often people act in ways that upset us because they are dealing with their own struggles. That impatient driver, maybe they're rushing to an emergency. That friend who canceled plans, maybe they're overwhelmed. That colleague who snapped at you, maybe they're facing pressure you don't know about. When we step back and consider other possibilities, our anger begins to fade. Then there's forgiveness, not for them, but for you. Forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about deciding that you won't let it take up space in your mind any longer. It's about freeing yourself. Holding on to resentment is like staying locked in a prison of your own making. The moment you decide to let go, you walk free. And finally, there's choice. You don't have to hold on to anger. You don't have to let it dictate your mood, your relationships, or your happiness. Every time you feel anger rise, you have a choice. Do I hold on to this, or do I let it go? The more you choose peace over anger, the lighter and freer you become. At the end of the day, anger is just an emotion. It doesn't have to define you. When you master the ability to acknowledge it, understand it, and release it, you reclaim your power, and that is how you truly find peace.